XRP derivative see big jump, trading volume up 42%, options up 204%, and open interest rises 87%. Welcome back to the Crypto ZX channel, to the XRP holders. Appreciate you guys as always, but without further ado, let's analyze and take a look at what's happening with XRP. Looking across the board, we are starting to see, altcoins going back into the green slowly but surely, but at the same time, you're starting to see pretty much 50-50 playing out, some coins down and, some coins up right now. As far as XRP price is concerned, back up to $2.15, which is of course amazing to see. Up 1% in USD, down about 0.5% in Bitcoin. Comparative valuation at $125.3 billion, and the 24-hour trading volume at about 2.6 billion. But before we get into any further, as always, just a quick disclaimer: anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in crypto. So, Bitcoin right now, I want to really kind of touch base with you guys. Are we actually about to see the likes of XRP, the likes of, Bitcoin exploding? Because, Bitcoin has been in this upwards trend. You guys can see this for yourself. It's having a great day right now, and obviously about to retest that $86,000 key resistance. And if that is able to break out, I think we could see more upside for BTC. But when I'm looking at the way Bitcoin is currently holding it, just makes me think about the M2 global money supply. That is absolutely sending right now. And remember the positive correlation between the two. So is this really the time for BTC to start reversing and start heading towards new all-time highs? We'll see, but as of now, you are seeing Bitcoin holding really nicely. Of course, on the other hand, dominance has been skyrocketing, showing a lot of strength, which of course does tend to have a little bit of a negative impact on altcoins, because altcoins do tend to lag when you do see this happening. But in a grand scheme of things right now, I am very closely monitoring this specific situation to see if this plays out. But moving forward, look at this here. Shout out to Smoke. So Ethereum will be dethroned as the biggest altcoin. And right now, of course, Ethereum has the first mover advantage. We spoke to you guys about that. Hence, you do have an ETF. But, a lot of people, even myself, I've been quite, clear on my personal take on this from the beginning, that I do believe, with the clarity that is coming towards XRP, with the enterprise's interest, and of course, as blockchain, technology is being implemented around the globe, you are going to see projects like XRP really thriving. And you can see this for yourself. This is what Smoke says. XRP will dethrone Ethereum as the top altcoin in 2025. We did see that happen in the past briefly, and I think this time around could really happen. With the help of the ETFs, I think this changes the game. But anyhow, Ethereum's decade-long grip on the altcoin market is cracking under the weight of its own inefficiencies. As I've stated to you guys before, I think there is better projects out there that can do what Ethereum does. So scalability, of course, scalability issues, but we've been knowing that. Again, if you've been in the space for such a long time, we know the scalability issues ETH has. And you can see scalability failures, outrageous gas fees, and stalled upgrades are pushing users and developers to the exit. Remember what I've stated on my channel, Solana. What happened? A lot of migration happened from, of course, across a lot of different chains to Sol. I think, like I said, Sol was, lead, and I still think, this bull cycle belongs to Solana. But, this is the perfect example, right? You are starting to see developers exiting, even in, high institutional investors exiting, and now more focused towards Sol. And if you've been noticing, big news coming out of, Canada as well about Solana ETF, again, really gives you an understanding, what's really happening. So in 2022, Ethereum fees peaked at $200 per transaction, the NFT phase. Shout out to you guys if you were there. Even with promised improvements, conjunction, and cost continued to plague the network, and it's becoming clear Ethereum can't scale fast enough to meet rising demand. Meanwhile, and speaking about rising demand in terms of developers, who is even developing on ETH anymore? I don't think as many people as we have seen in the past. So, meanwhile, faster, cheaper, and more efficient, competitors are stepping up. and none with more momentum than the XRPL ledger. XRPL is engineered for global scale and financial grade reliability, and here's why it's positioned to take Ethereum's crown: superior transaction speed and scalability. We know about that. Lower fees, carbon neutrality, and institutional migration away from Ethereum, and minimize slippage and impermanent loss in DeFi. Ethereum DeFi layer is inefficient and outdated. Ethereum was the first mover, but XRP is the better mover. 2025 will mark the fall of Ethereum dominance and the rise of XRP. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Do you think this will happen this year or sometime next year? What are your personal thoughts down below in regards to this? I think, when the ETFs launch, I think XRP takes over, in my opinion. But again, one step at a time, and look at this. Bitcoin apparent demand shows a positive turn after an extended period in negative territory. Bitcoin 30-day apparent demand is turning back up, and look at this. Capital is rushing to the. So a lot happening right now. A lot is happening. So BTC making a little bit of a recovery, and I do believe it has something to do with the correlation with the M2 global money supply. Obviously market makers keeping this factor in mind as well. But look at this. Very, very interesting thing to take away. Capital is rushing to the sidelines. In March, hedge funds conducted their most aggressive selling of world stocks since 2013, according to Goldman Sachs data. Not even in 2020 saw such a sharp exposure reduction in global equities. This was particularly driven by hedge funds dumping U.S. technology stocks. This also contributed to the largest S&P 500 underperformance versus the global stocks in 16 years during Q1 of 2025. The rush to the sidelines is real. Pretty much, people kind of stacking up capital in case markets were to tumble. But what if people start stacking up and market starts reversing? So again, it could go either way, but you could really see uncertainty still lies in terms of the bigger picture. Maybe we have already seen the bloodbath that we were going to see for the S&P and the overall stock market, and we did see quite a sharp one over the course of the last few weeks. So again, we'll see what happens, but Warren Buffett seeming like the most genius person at this point, because he was cashing out like never before while everyone was just completely focused on the markets, and now he's looking like he's a genius, and I think he's going to start going and purchasing some stocks with the funds he has. But again, one step at a time. Of course, that's my own personal opinion. Only time is going to tell. But let's take a look at what's happening with XRP's price. So if you're looking at XRP's price on the daily time frame, the not VeChain, we need XRP. You can see this for yourself. $2.14. It is replicating Bitcoin's move, as Bitcoin is showing strength. So as the price of XRP, but the dominance is still high. But doesn't really matter. XRP is still moving. Let's take a look at it on the hourly time frame. So if you're looking at it on the hourly time frame perspective, still we need to break out of that key resistance at $2.18. If we're able to break out of that range, I think we could be making our way up to the $2.24 quite fast. But one step at a time right now. So far so good. Like what I'm seeing here, but we'll take it step by step. Let me know down below what you guys think. We'll see you later in crypto. ZX and peace out.